I've just been reminded that all the time I acknowledge almost all of you who watch the show, except those who watch it via YouTube. I'm not forgetting that you are a bigger part of those who listen to us. When I'm done with the show and after a few hours after it's been posted on YouTube, you visit and you find the thousands of people who visit YouTube to watch the show. It's just amazing. So thank you very much, all of you who will watch this show later on YouTube. Thank you very much indeed. Now, my guest this morning, Theo Echampong. He is a petroleum economist at the University of Aberdeen. That's where he is presently. He is the interim vice chairman, Ghana Growth and Development Platform. Theo, I'm extremely excited to have you on the show. And I mean that. I mean that. On the social media platforms, you would find that he, together with Bright Simmons and Ace Ankoma and a few others, particularly these three, or these two, let me isolate them clearly. He and Bright Simmons have been the ones who have written these long articles trying to bring the issue down for all of us to appreciate properly. So that's the Theo Echampong you have been following on your social media and reading his analysis of the ITLO's ruling on the provisional measures. He is a petroleum economist, and he's at the University of Aberdeen, and he's the interim vice chairman, Ghana Growth and Development Platform. Let me also introduce Michael Koto. He's a senior partner at Confidence, a strategy and transactional advisory firm. You'll be blown when you hear the stuff he has to share with us today on this show. Mike, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Great. And I tell you, the guys have mouths, they've got some figures. I just can't make the head or tail of them that they are already beginning to share. I'll now want to introduce Professor Kwame Infojo. He's National Coordinator, Maritime Boundaries Secretariat and International Law Advisor, Government Arbitration Team. He's a former lecturer, Monash Law School, Melbourne. He's coming here the second time on this particular subject. I'm sure you remember when he was here the first time. He was able to calm you to get to understand the issues in their proper perspective. Prof, grateful.
Thank you very much.
Great. Right. Now, my own good friend and the best street pocket lawyer in town, Abdul Malik Kubaku Jr., he's around. He will join us right away. Well, he's walking to take his seat. His bag of documents. How many bags really? Not one. There's one beneath. There's a file he's hiding already. Please put the cameras on him.
Oh, come on.
He's already hiding the files. Such a huge load of files. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Great. Okay, so my guys are ready. This is the first segment of the show. We're going to try and decode the ITLO's ruling so that you can understand it better. And then after that, we'll deal with that bizarre Bust and BDC story. I say I don't understand it because here you are, have a creditor and are unaware of how much the debtor owes him and is now having to employ someone else to tell him how much exactly he's owed. And it takes the professional person that's been employed to tell this creditor that you have lost so much because of corruption. We'll get to all of that. Senor Jose, Kofi Adams, who is a member of the board of the BDCs, is it a member of the board, did I say of BDCs, of BOST. He will join us, and then we'll deal with the issues in that direction. Well, gentlemen, there's something very rare I need to do. My production tells me that it's good just to have your take briefly on the back of the Mayday celebration and the president's, assurance that the electricity problem is temporary and will be solved. There are a lot of efforts that are being made. We know Car Power is bringing in 490 or 60 generating, capacity to add to it. TUC or Labour is saying that the president must end the situation now because they are losing hope. And I'm quoting Kofi Asamoah. We just want to hear from you briefly how you appreciate the Dumsor situation, and if you have any, fine idea as to how we should go around it. Just very briefly, Theo.
Interesting. Good morning. And I'm quite glad to be here.
Right.
I know you've been chasing me
yes,
up
we
and
have.
down.
We
Yes,
have.
yes, certainly. But more to the substantive issue, the Dumsor situation or the power crisis situation, we've had this for the past 3 years and counting. This is not the first of power crisis that we've had as a country.
That's right.
But this one particularly has actually raised or brought to the fore a number of challenges that we have with our electricity situation. And I do remember all too well when the president came or took over the reins of power, he said that within a year, Dumsor would be solved, or if I may quote, that it will be a thing of the past. Be that as it may, we've had some challenges, and we've had some issues, and this is affecting industry. It's actually hitting industry a lot right. worse. If you look at the...
Kofi Asamoah, the Secretary General of the TUC, mentioned that people are losing their jobs because job owners are deciding that the money that they will use to pay these people, they will rather use that money to buy fuel to power their gensets.
Exactly. Because what happens is when you're caught, with making that binary decision, you would often want to keep the production going, so you would just have to lay off workers. And you read the news. The last time it was Fun Milk, it was Coca-Cola, it was the likes of Unilever, and recently this company, Blue Skies, threatening to lay off as much as 1,000 workers. To put it in the bigger context, the GDP growth estimates, if you recall, over the last couple of years, we were doing about 7.5%, 8% growth annually. And just because of the power crisis and some other systemic issues, we've had that halved, basically. So we're talking 3.5% growth this year against the backdrop of the Dumsor issues. The solutions, I dare say, are obvious. I've written extensively on this. We've got a number of solutions around us. It's just that it's been difficult, pushing through the reforms and how that ties into the broad national development agenda in terms of energy provision.
Do you buy into the car power project? We had a what do you call it? It's a power purchase agreement, which is a 10-year power purchase agreement with Car Power in June 2014. That's when it was signed with the ECG, of course, Government of Ghana. That's to me to speak, and they are supposed to bring in 450 megawatts of power. We were told initially that this was going to be in April, but as we know now, the first batch is supposed to come in. The first batch comprises 225 megawatts. It's supposed to come in September, and then the final bit will come in about 300 days later, sometime in January. You don't buy into that provision?
It's been difficult. You look at the numbers, you work out of the numbers, you look at what the government is saying, and juxtapose that against the reality, and it's been difficult to particularly buy into this, and for a number of reasons. One, they said it was emergency power. Typically, emergency power means that you contract these budgets and then they come in within 3 months, 90 days, thereabouts. We are talking more or less over 7 months now, and we still have not gotten a single one of them come in. Just a couple of days ago, I did read that ECG has contracted this same company to bring in now 120 megawatts interim. So it kind of raises a lot of questions.
Well, they say, though, that they are still in discussions with ECG about this, and they have not concluded on the additional that they were asking for, which is emergency. Anyway.
Very interesting.
Okay. Now, if you may finish up, I thought that you...
Yes. So this is the reality, and the reality is that what we claim to be emergency power really is not emergency power in the technical sense of the word. And there are also questions about if it's emergency, why sign a 10-year contract?
Okay.
You know, there's things about how do you even connect it into the national grid.
Right.
So you need to get the mooring, you need to get the berthing in place. It will take you a number of weeks, if not months, to get that structure in place. And then there's also the thing about pricing of the electricity.
Okay.
It's a very big gray area.
It's your expectation that when the budgets do come in,
Right.
we should expect to pay a lot higher.
Certainly.
And that even when they do come in September, the first batch, we should expect that it will take a month or two to have them fixed.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Kweku, let me get you briefly on this. You are fatigued about this, and you have said it over and again.
Exactly. So I thought you were going to avoid asking.
Yes, don't worry. That's why I want to get you quickly and then join them. But don't do as you did the last time, that you don't want to say anything at all about it. The president said yesterday that it is temporary. He's being reminded by many people that this saying temporary, he said that over and again. So we are tired of hearing temporary. And in any case, what is definition of the word temporary? Because on Independence Day, he said, you know, temporary. Other times he has said, you know, this is just a short the experience we are going through, and yet we are not seeing any solutions. And we know that the car power plants are coming in September and in January. That obviously is not temporary. But TUC or Labour saying he must end it now. Does it appear to you that they don't appreciate what is being done to fix the situation?
Well, in Ghana, temporary could mean anything, just like provisional meant 11 years. So when we decide to talk temporary, you can imagine the time frame is undetermined. I can appreciate the skepticism and cynicism out there. I can appreciate that. And I think the president himself would understand that. And that's why at one stage he actually promised not to promise again, because there had been a certain build-up of unfulfilled promises.
Right.
And as an individual who is the president, the first gentleman of the land, it was now becoming problematic. Of course, he might tell you that those promises were based on what he had been told
Advice.
by the technocrats and the technical men. Some truth in that, one cannot deny that. But for the people who want solutions, you know, sometimes very instant solutions to their problems, particularly when it comes to energy.
Right.
I mean, where it's just not the
Very
domestic,
frustrating.
but also the industrial and commercial. So I can understand what is going on. I am not surprised at the TUC asking for a solution now. The president said in the shortest possible time. Perhaps that is the one that we should be opting for. As for now, forget it. I don't see how that's going to be coming on board. It's unrealistic. Clearly, it's not going to happen. So the shortest possible time, now we ought to define what we mean by shortest possible time. Perhaps taking us back to the pre-independence days as to what that meant, really. But bottom line, Ghanaians want solution. And that's why when deadlines and timelines are given, one should be very careful. You don't fulfill those lines, it deepens the cynicism or the skepticism. And then people lose faith in what you are saying. For all you know, it's very possible that September, these things will arrive. And when they do arrive, it will assist, it will facilitate, it will help us to begin to solve the problems. So I am a bit worried for the credibility, apparent credibility crisis.
There are those who feel it was deliberate on the part of government to communicate to Ghanaians that the budgets were coming in April, when they knew for a fact that they will not be ready in April.
Unfortunately,
until the journalists went and spoke to those who were manufacturing it, we would not have gotten to know that they were actually supposed to come in September.
Well, that was more of a confirmation or a reinforcement of what people knew wouldn't happen. Because much earlier, some civil society groups and other social commentators had pointed to the fact that it wasn't going to happen based on a certain their technical knowledge of how this particular area is dealt with. So it was obvious.
Remember, Amin Adams, Rekubrobe, Dems,
yes.
And we spoke about this year, government people rubbish them as not knowing what they were dealing with.
Yes, but having gone to the field, then that matter is reinforced and, if you like, authenticated, I mean, confirmed beyond any reasonable doubt. You know, so let's hope. Who doesn't want to have a solution?
And the president is the first person who wants to have a solution.
I am telling you, everybody, because it's just too much. You understand? So I think we should all get together and make sure the solution comes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Let me ask Mike. Mike, how does it affect you yourself personally?
Thank you. I'll probably just go beyond myself. I would use the smallest, small business operator.
Okay.
You take the hairdresser, you take your barber, you take your welder, you take your iced water seller. These are all folks who depend on power.
A good number of them are powering gensets.
And their incomes are barely disposable. Your margins are very tight. So the slightest of these, I mean, they don't operate 24 hours. If the lights are out for 12 hours, and the hairdresser can't work for 12 hours, that's a huge loss. So it's huge, and it runs through all layers of the economy. If you imagine that factories that run on, much higher consumption of power have to power their operations with, private gen sets, that's huge. So it's a very, very, very serious situation. I just want to add that as a country, we have the capacity to deal with this and solve this. I agree that I think that the projections that we've been given are probably unduly over-optimistic, but that's also because I think government is intent on solving this. So, they are more prone to go with the optimistic projections. But I think that if we really want to deal with this crisis, we need to appreciate that there are fundamental financing and tariff issues at the heart of this. There's a reason why a lot of the emergency solutions are not coming in. There are fundamental challenges with the tariff structure. There are fundamental challenges with viability of the operations. I'll just give you a quick example. The car power ships, for example, if you look at the power agreement that government signed with car power, they proposed to pay about $65 per kilowatt for the power that they're going to generate. Government is currently, well, not government, but ECG as the off-taker is currently paying existing power producers like Asogli in the range of about 24, I think, cents per kilowatt. You can see the gap. Car power is going to get about almost three times what existing producers are getting. And existing producers have complained that unless the tariff structures are reviewed, their current operations are not particularly sustainable for the long run. They need to improve their credit profiles so they can raise more capital financing to expand their operations. But we know, of course, that there are issues with retail pricing. The PRC, with labor, there are fundamental issues. But I just want to say that as a country, we need to confront this because this is what is at the heart of the issue. How do we price power? The tariff structure. And we also have to record, for a long time as a country, we've depended on a hydro plant. And hydro is relatively cheap, but if we consider what has happened over the last several years, where consistently water levels have been low and the economy has been expanding, we need to begin to appreciate that perhaps we should treat Akosombo and Bui and Pong as essentially reserve plants. But if we're going to transition into more expensive sources of power which are much more reliable, like thermal, then we need to also transition from the pricing tariff structure which is based on hydro into one that is essentially based on more expensive sources. I'm sure we can have more discussions about this much later, but I just want to say that as a country, we have the capacity to deal with it and solve it. And I'll just say that the president should keep working on this, but we need to confront the tariff issue.
Right. Prof, people are saying, yes, Mr. President, we are aware this is what your government is doing. Now we can be reassured that Car Power is a very reliable entity. We understand that Car Power is operating in is operating more than 2,000 megawatts installed capacity globally. It supplies 15% of Iraq and supplies also 25% of Lebanon's total electricity capacity. So we are not the first that they are coming to assist with the 450. Yet people say we just can't wait any longer. That's why the Labour says we want this fixed now.
Now, Samson, I think I'm going to disappoint you because I'm not going to make what is essentially a political comment.
Okay.
What I am going to say is that the government's efforts to deal with the question of the power crisis spans many dimensions. And indeed, one of the most important quiet ways of making sure that the power crisis does not worsen is the intensity, the depth, the quality, the strength of our approach to dealing with the maritime boundary delimitation issue. So DUMSO has many dimensions, and one of those dimensions is making sure that the petroleum and the gas that belongs to us remains our property. So the maritime boundary delimitation process and the success that we've had at ITLOS actually has a strong but indirect relationship to the government's efforts to make sure that the crisis doesn't. That's all I'm saying. That's really all that I'm going to say, because there's this focus on, attack, this, that. And there's a bigger dimension to this. So please, add that onto the list of things that the government is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now.